Let's kick it.
Ice, ice, baby. Ice, ice, baby.
All right, stop, collaborate and listen. Ice is back with my brand new invention. Something grabs a hold of me tightly, flow like a harpoon daily and nightly.
Will it ever stop?
Yo, I don't know. Turn off the lights and I'll glow. To the extreme, I rock a mic like a vandal. Light up a stage and wax a chump like a candle. Dance, crush a speaker that booms. I'm killing your brain like a poison.
The word left itself is always associated with negative things. Have you ever noticed that? Leftovers, they're terrible. Two left feet, left-handed compliment. On television, you ever see a crook named Righty? You never see that. Everything right, they make a positive thing. Right on, the Bill of Rights. You go to a party, there's nobody there. Where'd everybody go? They left.
You and me, no matter how they toss the dice, it had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me, so happy together. I can't see me loving nobody but you for all my life. When you're with me, baby, the skies will be blue for all my life. Me and you, and you and me, no matter how they toss the dice.
The greatest argument for AI is you can make memes like the one with AOC and Bernie. You can make things like that. It's like the one with Donald Trump as the Pope, going like this. When you could do stuff like that, but that one was particularly entertaining. Thanks everybody for joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello. We're going to go way in the breach tonight, so stick around. We got a lot of great clips for you tonight. So evidently, Carney met with President Trump. You got Stephen A. Smith unloading on the Democrats as he's been doing lately. I'm not the biggest fan of Stephen A. Smith, but he's making a lot of sense, and we're gonna get into that. I'm tired of Catholics who don't act like they're Catholic calling themselves Catholic. So we're gonna get into the governor of Washington and his most recent atrocity. AOC, how do you do it, Joe and Joe, without even showing and or mentioning AOC at least once? Joe Rossello, at least once. And then we got a closing clip for you from of all people, Kevin Sorbo's son, who we want you to stick around for that. So yeah, Joe, habemus papam, as they say, and for all
we got a new pope,
there.
Pretty crazy, an American. Never thought that was possible. So we'll see what happens. Chicago.
And I do get like the main concern that I've heard even before the conclave, and this conclave went quick. Okay,
3 votes.
This was quick. I'm like, all right, my wife or somebody, I think it was my wife, texted me this morning and said there's white smoke. I was like, really? It's been a day. What are you talking about, white smoke? And I usually think like, okay, they say, all right, tonight, whoever it is, the newly named pope, the newly elected pope, will come out on the balcony. Then I go back and I look on X, and it's all over X. He's already out there. I was like, where did this come from? And then you find out it's an American pope. And I understand the concern, obviously, is that America's the superpower of the world. We still are, no matter what people want to say about China. And the new pope, the head of the Catholic Church, and a heavy influencer even in the non-Catholic world, okay, is an American. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. What do you think, Joe?
Well, like I said, we just got to see. I personally think he's going to be a moderate. That's what I think. I think he's going to not fully appease either side. And I think that could potentially be a good thing, because I think if it went either way, I think things could have gotten crazy. We'll see. But that's my guess. If I was going to go, I think he's going to walk the line a little bit more towards the middle, as far as, not to divide the church, but the church right now has a great divide in it. I think he's going to straddle that line well. And we'll see. That's about all I can say.
I mean, along the lines of what I said to you earlier, we're going to play a clip of the governor of Washington who calls himself Catholic and says, hey, I'm really Catholic because my uncle was a Jesuit priest. That doesn't really make you Catholic, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But my point is this. I simply want orthodoxy. That's it. I want the teaching of the church. That's
That's
all I
all.
want. I don't, and you know what? To borrow a line from you, okay, or to paraphrase you, I just simply want clarity.
That's
I
all.
want everything
That's
to
it.
be clear. You make it clear. We love everybody. Sodomy is a mortal sin. We love everybody. Abortion is intrinsically evil. We love everybody. We're a welcome in church. All are welcome. Like I just want a return to some ABCs of the church. You want to, like Jimmy Aiken, like I said, I was watching him. If you want to support environmentalism and teach people to be good stewards of the environment without being a radical, I'm with you, Papa. If if you want to be a peacemaker in the world, you should be a peacemaker because Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will see the face of God." Okay, those things, I'm totally with it. He starts getting into who am I to judge type stuff, then I know we're in for a long ride. But as you said, we're gonna wait and see, and of course, most importantly, we're gonna pray. Now, you know who needs prayers tonight, Joe Resinello? Do you know who needs prayers tonight? Because I'm gonna tell you something. If there's one thing I like about Donald Trump, if he does not care if he's sitting right next to the person he's not agreeing with. Let me be charitable, okay? He's going to say what's on his mind. He's going to say the truth. So here's what happened when all you good Canadian friends of ours, here's what happened when Mr. Carney was sitting in the White House with DJT.
If respectfully, Canadians' view on this is not going to change on the 51st state. Secondly, we are the largest client of the United States in the totality of all the goods. So we are the largest client of the United States. We have a tremendous auto sector between the two of us, and the changes that made have been helpful. 50% of a car that comes from Canada is American. That's not like anywhere else in the world. And to your question about is there one thing? No, this is a bigger discussion. There are much bigger forces involved, and this will take some time and some discussions, and that's why we're here, to have those discussions, and that is represented by who's sitting around the table.
See, the conflict is, and this is very friendly. We're not. This is not going to be like we had another little blow up with somebody else. That was a much different. This is a very friendly conversation, but we want to make our own cars. We don't really want cars from Canada, and we put tariffs on cars from Canada, and at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars. And we don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel, and we're having massive steel plants being built right now as we speak. We really don't want Canadian steel, and we don't want Canadian aluminum and various other things because we want to be able to do it ourselves. And we, because of, past thinking of people, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. In other words, they have a surplus with us. And there's no reason for us to be subsidizing Canada. Canada's a place that will have to be able to take care of itself economically. I assume they can. I will tell you that Trudeau, when I spoke to him, I used to call him Governor Trudeau. I think that probably didn't help his election. But when I spoke to him, I said, so why are we taking your cars? Why are we taking we want to make them ourselves. I mean, I said, and if the price of your cars went up, or if we put a tariff on your cars of 25%, what would that mean to you? He said, that would mean the end of Canada. He actually said that to me. And I said, that's a strange answer, but I understand his answer. But no, I mean, it's hard to justify subsidizing Canada to the tune of maybe $200 billion a year. We protect Canada militarily, and we always will. We're going to, that's not a money thing. But we always will. But, it's not fair. But why are we subsidizing Canada $200 billion a year, or whatever the number might be? It's a very substantial number. And it's hard for the American taxpayer to say, gee whiz, we love doing that. Thank you very much. We're going to have a very substantial. Thank you.
He's 1,000% right. And I'm going to throw it right to you. But here's what I want the audience to notice, Joe Sinello, and I would love a comment from you. Did you see the globalist squirming?
Oh, dude, big time.
Did you see his uncomfortable stance he was in? Because he wants to cut off Trump and give the globalist line or whatever, and Trump's just talking. And this is what pisses off the left, Joe. Trump just keeps saying exactly what's on the mind of the people that voted for him, which is I don't want to pay higher for Canadian products so that the Canadian people have to pay less in taxes or whatever the case might be. And I don't want my money going into Canada to the tune of $200 billion. I want that money in my pocket. And the globalist sitting there like, and doesn't know what to say. And then Trump rightfully throws Trudeau under the bus and says, he said if we put on a 25% tariff, Canada's finished. Joe, throwing it over to you.
Ultimately, everything Trump said is right, and what Carney sold to the Canadian people was a lie. It was a distraction. Trump did make a mistake, though, and he actually acknowledged it in that statement. He said, I probably shouldn't have done that, and Carney smiled. That's why Carney won the election. He galvanized the population in Canada around that statement, and people forgot what Trudeau did to you. And that's how Carney won. Period. End of story. Ultimately, though, the Canadian government is lying to the Canadian people because everything Trump just said is accurate. And I'm not trying to sound nasty. I love Canadians, but the United States does not need Canada. The United States is a humongous nation from coast to coast, 3,500 miles long, all of which is inhabitable. It does not need Canada. And basically, Trump just laid that out. Ultimately, Canada will pay a humongous price if it does not play ball with America. It's just reality.
It is
and
the reality.
And that's what he basically said.
Situation.
And that's why he was uncomfortable. Because he does not want his people to hear that. Because everything he sold to Canada, I'm going to protect you from Donald Trump. Ultimately, the only way that Carney is going to protect the economic interests of the Canadian people is if he plays ball with Donald Trump. And that's reality.
And well, let me tell you the model they're going to have to go by now. We're going to see how things shake out. But as of today, I think it was this morning, okay, Trump signed a deal with the UK, all right? I watched the clip. I was watching financial news, and Trump was on speakerphone with Keir Starmer, who actually sounded normal for a change, all right? And the only reason he sounded normal is because he understands the reality of the situation. Howard Lutnick turned around and said, we just made a deal with the fourth largest trading partner that we have. That's fairly substantial, the fourth largest. We know China, India, and some of the others have to fall into line. Keir Starmer, for all his faults, he gets what you just said, Joe, that we crush any one of them. We have a $35 trillion economy, a $35 trillion stock market, and we only have 335 million people. We have a third of the population of China. We have a third of the population of India. And even if our economies are the same size per capita, we have a larger economy. Like you said, if we shut out every product coming from overseas, if you took all the illegals and sent them back, all right, put a halt to all the visas, okay, and you told these countries out there, go ahead, line up against us if you want. We're putting 150% tariff on all of you. And short term, there's going to be pain. We're building our own steel mills. We're drilling our own oil. We're going into the ground. We're doing our own manufacturing and everything else. We're going to have all good paying jobs. Women will be able to stay home and raise their kids. We're going to have lots of kids. And in about 10 years' time, you're all going to be, if not sooner, you're all going to be begging us, which they tacitly are doing now, Joe. They're only trying to sound tough. Just like China's in bad shape. I don't know why, like, the leftist media tries to make it seem like China's on equal footing with us. They are not on equal footing with us. They're in bad shape. So is England if we impose tariffs on them. So are the rest of these countries if these tariffs at that high level that Donald Trump originally slapped on. If you don't lower your tariffs, our tariffs are staying here. All right? And Donald Trump is absolutely right. This guy, half the car is made in Canada, half the car you buy. All right, fine. Well, Donald Trump's going to unravel that, Mr. Carney. Do you know where I'm going, Joe?
No, it's not trying to sound nasty, but it's reality. It's just reality. Our elite sold the country. They threw us under the bus, Joe. They threw us under the bus for decades, and they got rich. What Donald Trump is doing, slowly, he is bringing jobs. By the way, the jobs number outperformed by 300,000. Just so you know, check it out. That came out just recently, and that's just the beginning. Donald Trump is actually turning his back on the rich. Yes, they give him money. Yes, there are oligarchs. I get it, and I have a problem with that too. However, Donald Trump's policies and the Republican Party under Donald Trump is the Democratic Party of 40 years ago. It is. Just about. It is the Democratic Party, not perfectly, but it is surely not the Republican Party of George Bush. It is surely not the Republican Party of
Mitt Romney.
what's his face, that freak from Utah.
Mitt Romney.
It's not that party either, and he was a moderate Republican. It is a completely different party, and many people are saying it. Many Democrats are saying it, including the senator from Pennsylvania, by the way, and they're turning on him right now.
Of course they are. He's supposed to be a good little puppet. He's supposed
And
to.
he's
supposed to
no,
read
because
his
he's
lips.
actually
not doing it.
speaking sense. He's actually speaking sense.
No, here. Watch this, and then we're going to come right back to that conversation because this is another aspect of the Democrat Party here at the front line with Joe and Joe.
Politicians on Capitol Hill saying, I'm here just to disagree and oppose every damn thing Trump wants to do. Well, why are you up on Capitol Hill? Ain't you supposed to be figuring out what you want to be against and what you could potentially be for? Isn't he known as a deal maker? Hasn't he been, whether it's revered or insulted, as a non-politician? Hasn't he been somebody that gives you the impression, if you're complimentary towards him about some things that he does, and you're willing to sit down and talk with him, he will sit up there and appease you just the way he would ask you to appease him? If you're not willing to talk and work across the aisle on Capitol Hill, what the hell are you up there for? So that is what came to my mind. You have to work with people you dislike, people you disagree with, people who you know in your core, in your core, do not have you, nor your communities, nor your constituencies' best interests at heart. You still have to work with them. If Cuomo wins the mayoral seat in New York City, Andrew Cuomo, you think he's not going to try to work with the Trump White House? Josh Shapiro is the governor of Pennsylvania. Wes Moore is the governor of Maryland. You think they're not going to try to work with Trump and his White House to get things done, even though they're going to speak against him on certain issues? You can't have this closed door, closed-minded, resolute belief that allows you the excuse to remain stagnant, therefore ineffective in doing your job. That's my issue with politicians.
And he's right. Because listen, if you're talking about, let's say I was a member of the House, okay? I'm not working with you on abortion. That's it, okay? I'm not working with you on transgenderism. That's it. I'm going to draw the line. I'm not going to go in front of the cameras. I'm not going to call you names, not like you'll do to me if you're a Democrat, okay? But on those things that we could work, if you're going to hold it against me because I don't fully agree with your agenda, and we know that for what they do to Democrats like Tulsi Gabbard and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We know what they do to Democrats who want to do what Stephen A. Smith just said, which is work with the other side. I would say, all right, I'll work with you on that. I can't work with you on that. I'm going to vote against you on that. But I'll work with you on that issue. I'll work with you on that issue. Half the issues Trump's in favor of. Tariffs, that was a Democrat issue. Why are they? Because they're all in the bag for the globalists now. That's why. The entire Democrat Party, like you said, 40 years ago might have been a different story. Nowadays, they're all globalists. They're not up there to work with anybody. I watched the clip of what they tried to do to Scott Bessent. It was disgusting. These people, Joe, are disgusting people. There's no other way to describe it. They don't ask substantive questions. Everything with them is gotcha, and I'm reclaiming my time. I'm reclaiming my time. My time. It's my time, not your time. But you just asked them a question. Why don't you give them a chance to answer? No, it's my time. Especially, yes, especially these black congresswomen like Jasmine Crockett and people like her, okay? So Cori Bush and others, okay? They're not there to work with anybody. They are there because Soros money helped them to get elected in low turnout districts. And that's why they're there, to go there to drop bombs, just like Anthony Weiner was 10, 15 years ago, and people like him along the way. And it's culminated in the AOCs of the world, the Jasmine Crockett's of the world, and all these people. They ain't interested in working with Trump. Trump could come up with a cure for AIDS. He could have it written on paper, or cancer. He could have it written on paper, backed up by every scientist in the world, say, I need funding for this. They'll say, yeah, we're not giving it to you. That's how disgusting they are, Joe.
Well, ultimately, what's going to happen is either the Democratic Party is going to change or the Democratic Party is going to die out. Because ultimately, those people like Cori Bush and Jasmine Crockett, I hope they keep it up because the American people are not having it. They're simply not. The past election proved that out. And ultimately, if that continues, they're going to lose the midterms. And the smart people are seeing that. They have to change. They have to lose this group within that party. That coalition is a cancer within the Democratic Party, and Stephen A. Smith sees it. He sees it as clear as day. They have to lose the Elon Omars. They have to. They're losers. They're a cancer within your party. You're not going to win. The only reason why Joe Biden won is because A, COVID happened, and B, they sold him as Scranton Joe, and then once he got there, they pulled the bait and switch. Notice when Kamala Harris ran, she didn't say anything because she couldn't. She couldn't say what she wanted to do because the American people aren't having it.
Right.
The American people aren't having it. The two extremes, the 10% on the right and the 10% on the left, do not win elections. It's the 80% in the middle. And the 80% in the middle is not interested in Jasmine Crockett. They're not interested in Elon Omar. And it has nothing to do with the color of their skin. It has everything to do with what they say and what they stand for. And the Democratic Party doesn't want to get to that place yet. And I got news for you. They're going to continue to lose. I think they're going to lose the midterms. They are going to lose the next round of presidency. And you may have 8 more years of a MAGA movement because of the cancer that's in your party.
Well,
you have to self-police it.
MAGA has to become, or at least MAGA as a general ethos in America, has to become the new baseline. The establishment, Republican and Democrat, that has to go. I'm talking about the establishment, okay? Because even though AOC and the rest of them, they're not necessarily the establishment, but for whatever reason, the establishment in the Democrat Party seems to give them free reign to do whatever they want. They could go out there, they could support the castration of minors, murder of innocent human beings in the womb up to the moment of birth. It seems the establishment, but that was the baseline. That's why a guy like Mitt Romney is so indistinguishable from, let's say, a guy like, I don't know, pick a Democrat, a moderate, or even a liberal establishment Democrat. All right. The new baseline has to be MAGA. The new baseline has to be, once these tariffs are in place, you're not undoing them. Once either the abolition of the personal income tax for all taxpayers below $200,000 becomes norm, it's got to stay that way. You can't change that. MAGA has to become the ethos long after Donald Trump is out of office, so that even if a Democrat gets in there, they ain't going to have the balls to try to reverse some of this stuff, Joe. They're not. What are you going to do? Open up the gates again to the southern border and let another 10 million people in after Trump deports 10 million people? Is that what they're going to run on? Is that what they're going? Well, we know they won't run on that, but we know that's what they're going to do. While they go on the liberal media and say, no, you're wrong about that. We didn't do that. Yes, you did. We have evidence. What are you talking about? You think we're all stupid? And honestly, they do think we're all stupid. So I'm with you. Let them destroy themselves. But they're not dumb people, Joe.
No, well, they have a strategy. As long as social media is permitted, as long as X particularly is on, like, basically everyone's app, they're finished. X sunk the Democratic Party. For the first time, maybe in the history of America, we had a glimmer, a slim idea of what actually is happening in our halls of, like, law and justice and what actually is going on. We know this much. We don't even know everything, but this much is all it took and you can't unsee what you saw. People no longer trust the media. Rightfully. They don't trust it. Regular people, this is not conspiracy theorists. This is your neighbor. And they earned that, meaning the media's reputation for being dishonest. You earned it.
Yep.
And it can't be undone.
No.
So this is what I'm saying. They have to change. They have to change. And if they don't, and like I said, some people are seeing that within the
Right.
party. You're starting to hear those voices. If those voices do not catch hold, they're finished, Joe. I'm telling you
Joe,
right
listen,
now.
But that's going to be a problem that they're going to have to deal with in their own family.
But they have to fix that themselves.
And if I'm a Democrat, if I'm a John Fetterman, you brought him up. I
gets
didn't
it.
like the guy. I'm not saying I like the guy, but I got to respect the guy for going against his party.
Yo, you know what he's doing? It's self-preservation. He sees what's in front of him. He's in a purple state. He's saying basically without saying it, I am not throwing myself under the bus for you. That's what he's saying. That's what Mayor Adams said in New York to Joe Biden's administration. He said, I am not throwing myself under the bus for you. And I got news for you. That's exactly what they should be doing. And notice the machine is going after Fetterman now, and they went after Adams. But they obviously now they don't have the strength and the power of the presidency as they did when they went after Adams, because that was ridiculous. And notice that dropped the second Trump went into the White House. All those they're saying that he was getting money from the Turkish government. It was ridiculous. It's shameful.
See, I just got done saying that they're smart people, but then I have to question whether or not they are when they say dumb things like that. Like, stop saying, if you want to lie is one thing, but lies don't actually have to sound stupid. But that lie sounds particularly stupid. Like, you got money from the Turkish government. All right, you got money from George Soros. George Soros is probably worth more than the Turkish government. Guy's worth about what? Probably, so what are you talking about, Trump? And Trump doesn't need anybody's money. Look at a guy like Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman's not a conservative, not the last time I checked, okay? Major hedge fund manager who's backing Trump on tariffs. Now, he's a Wall Street guy who's backing Trump on tariffs. Do you know how much stones that takes to go against Larry Fink and Jamie Dimon? No, let me take that back. Jamie Dimon's been sounding very reasonable when it comes to Trump and what he's trying to do. But others out there on Wall Street, the oligarchs who reside on Wall Street and make tens and tens and tens and hundreds, if not billions of dollars a year. Okay. Bill Ackman, that takes some stones to say, well, Trump is actually right about the tariffs. We are getting ripped off. Now, that's just a true statement. Okay. Just like that clip with Carney. In other words, okay, we subsidize you through tariffs to $200 billion a year, Mark. We're not doing it anymore. Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello got to send their kids to school. We're not giving you their share of that $200 billion. And he's going to say that to China. Bessent is supposedly meeting with China. Evidently, they're at least coming to the table to try to talk about de-escalation. Okay. If they achieve that, listen, the market, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, the market is back to pre-April 2nd levels. And Bloomberg every morning is still wringing their hands over Donald Trump's tariffs, and only one deal has been done. One with the UK. One deal's been done. That was today. The market's back to where it was above April 2nd. What does that tell you, Joe? It tells you Wall Street's going to be fine. Pension funds are going to be fine. Mutual funds are going to be fine. Nvidia's still going to go up, okay? AMD's probably still going to go up, and so is Apple and Google and the rest of them, okay? It's the system that they want to preserve through the financial
100%. And that's the system is not for the people. The system works for them. And that's 100% right, Joe, that you're 100% correct.
But then we got people in Canada, no offense to our brothers and sisters up north of the border, and not the people that listen to the front line with Joe and Joe. You can blame Trump all you want, okay? The fact is the Canadian people voted for Carney, okay? Doesn't matter what Trump said. You knew what Trudeau was all about. All our Canadian friends on this show were letting people in the chat room know what Carney was all about. And I'm sure on many other chat rooms let people know what Carney was all about. And the Canadians still voted for Carney. Okay? Because he's going to beat Trump. We will squash them. Doesn't matter how much oil Canada has. We'll just say we're not buying it anymore. All right, start drilling, boys. North Dakota, all over the place. Texas, anywhere you can, start drilling. How about, let me ask you this. I want to play you this clip, okay? Because this is going to be important when it comes to Hispanics and African-American men, okay? Joe, you know, Apple said they're gonna be building iPhones, producing iPhones in America, and they're investing $500 billion. You know who's going to get a lot of those jobs? Blacks and Hispanics. Okay. You also have NVIDIA, because Trump is putting the squeeze on NVIDIA to make their chips here. Okay. You have Intel just built a major factory in Columbus, Ohio. Taiwan Semiconductor supposedly is building 2 major manufacturing facilities here in my area. Who do you think's getting jobs in Arizona, Joe? Hispanics. Hispanics are going to get those jobs. You think that what Trump is doing, okay, see, they're going to try to play a race card that I don't know how they're possibly going to play it, when so many of those hundreds of thousands of jobs are going to go to black men and to Hispanic men, and Steve Bannon's got it right.
I mean, they're all different ethnic groups, different races, and that's great. And the Delta board should have some reflection of that. Not the idea to give everybody some SAT test, and then you say, well, gee, that's just where it is. But I think diversity, if properly done, is a very important tool in the United States, and I think it should be done.
So, Steve, when you hear what James says, what lands, what misses?
I think it all sounds and feels great, but this is the problem. It's all about feeling. That was a sop thrown to people. You want strength in the minority and Black and Hispanic community. Let's get high value added jobs back here. 10 million illegal aliens were allowed in this country to drive down wages of Blacks and Hispanics. The Federal Reserve is very open about that. Wall Street bragged about it. That's the biggest thing that's affecting Black and Hispanic lower income families right now. What President Trump's trying to do is level the playing field, get wages back up. This entire reorganizing the global trade system is to bring high value added manufacturing jobs back here, not these service jobs, manufacturing jobs. So you can have a healthy middle class, but more importantly, a healthy working class with high paying jobs. And by the way, so that's where Trump's focus. The DEI, hang on. This is what Wall Street and the corporate America always do. They throw you some sop. That's a shiny pony to divert your attention of how they're screwing the working class and middle class in this country every day.
And see, now this is why I listen to Bannon. Okay. Bannon's a Wall Street guy. He worked there for years. Okay. Made a lot of money, Goldman Sachs. And he's telling you what they're doing. Joe, let me tell you something. What is the source of all value? Labor. If you have nobody to produce your goods, you could have all the investments, you could have all the materials, you could have the land, you could have the factory to go. Okay. This is where I disagree with conservatives. They downplay the role of labor. You can't labor is not just a part of it. Labor is necessary. And in order to employ somebody, you have to take a man out of his home for 9 hours a day, and you got to give him enough money so that he could go back home and raise his family. If that's not your model, then you're doing something wrong. And that's what we've been doing. And Bannon is exactly right. These people were brought in. And why did he single out, by the way, Black and Hispanic workers to drive down their wages? Because if you drive their wages down, where do you force them? Into the hands of the federal government in the form of food stamps that they would need to feed their families, perhaps some federal assistance. That's what it was designed for. Bannon is exactly right.
Well, ultimately, even during this last presidential election, if you listen to some of the voices in Chicago and the Bronx, Black and Hispanic voices, they were saying that they were abandoned by the Democratic Party, by those people coming in south of the border. That's not my statement. That's their statement. You heard that in Brooklyn. You heard that in the Bronx. You heard that in Chicago. They were abandoned. And notice the body language of Stephen A. Smith as he was saying that. Did you see him? His head was almost like, because he knows it's true.
He knows it's true. Yep.
It absolutely is true. What happened when you brought in that labor? You see, this is the nefarious part about it. I'm all for giving people a chance. I'm all for immigration. But there has to be responsibility around the people in your country. Do you have the infrastructure to support it? New York didn't have it. Mayor Adams, a Democrat, that's his statement, not mine, said we don't have the infrastructure for this. I need help. And the Biden administration would not give him help. They basically wanted to just throw him under the bus, and he wasn't having it. But ultimately, when you are in that like labor pool, like he was saying, you're basically flooding that market. You're creating competition, and that is hurting lower income blacks and Hispanics in neighborhoods like Brooklyn, lower income neighborhoods, not the high end neighborhoods like Brooklyn Heights and Park Slope, lower income neighborhoods in the Bronx. They're taking their jobs, and they know that. That's basic economics, and they don't care because it wasn't about the working class. It was about political power. This was the model that was put forth across the entire West, all over Europe, Australia, Canada, Ireland, the UK. They are doing this to get political power at the detriment of the people, particularly the working class. That is as clear as day.
Yeah.
And that is why the Democratic Party is not for the middle class. It's as simple as that.
Right. Well, again, you have to remember, in all these conversations, Joe, that you hear, and if you're just joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, we're way in the breach. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. Please, wherever you're watching this video, if you like the content, share it, share it, share it, share it. Get it out there. It seems like the algorithms over on X and the rest of them. Joe and I have been stuck at 17,000 followers on Facebook, no matter, regardless of how well our videos do, for I don't know how long. If you tell me that there's not something wrong there, I don't know what to tell you. We grew to 17,000, and all of a sudden, a cap on it. 87,000 on YouTube hasn't gone up an iota. And so, and X is just hard to navigate. So wherever you can, help us out. But Joe, I'm going to tell you this. When, and it's going to be when these companies, and Joe, they're not spending a little bit of money. And remember something, when Apple spends $500 billion in the United States to manufacture iPhones in the United States, think about, it's like oil and gas. If you go and if you find a major area with a lot of oil and you go set up, all of a sudden, I know this happens in Canada. My cousin who worked up at one of the your Canadians are going to get mad at me. It's in I believe Alberta, towards the north, Fort something or other. My cousin was telling me, Joe, now it is a remote place and nobody wants to live there. That's why the guys who work in the oil industry, number one, make a ton of money. My cousin drove a bus just to drive the workers in the snow, by the way, from the town to the site, to the field, and driving back. I think he was making 150,000 Canadian dollars a year. The McDonald's workers get $25 an hour. Okay, you have all of the business that's going to be around the fact. Okay, around the fact that, let's say, for argument's sake, where is Apple building their facility? Let's start businesses over there because there's going to be tens of thousands of people there. Where's Taiwan Semiconductor building? Oh, down in Phoenix. Let's start businesses over there. So the ripple effect is out there. But when these particularly Black and Hispanic men start to go to work for these companies and they're not getting paid crap, they're actually getting paid really good wages. And if you combine that with Trump's tariffs being offset by your tax cut, or your tax cut being offset by the tariffs coming in, and now all of a sudden you are able to raise your family, where are the Democrats going to go there? And that's a legit question I'm asking you, Joe. When that happens, and
they'll have to change. They're going to have to. That's my point, Joe. They're going to have to change. This ideology, this far left ideology that has been basically, it's a cancer within America, but the Democratic Party has embraced it, has to be banished into the wilderness. It has to be banished into the wilderness. Just like the neo-Nazis have to be banished into the wilderness. They exist, but they have to go to like a remote corner of someplace, wherever they go. And just like they have to go someplace, these crazy people have to go away. Because they don't, first of all, have no common sense whatsoever, and they have hurt America. Our cities are in shambles. They have absolutely destroyed our education system. The damage that they have done is absurd. And and like I said, people have had it. The last election says so. 1 in 5 Black men voted for Donald Trump, and that's only going to grow. That's why they opened the border.
But let me ask you a question. What possibly, I want an answer to this. Eric Adams says we can't handle all these illegals. Joe Biden didn't help him, meaning Barack Obama and the oligarchs did not help Mayor Adams. Why?
Why? political votes. They don't care about Eric Adams. If Eric Adams doesn't get reelected, so what? You put another puppet there in
And
plain
even
English.
even at the price of destroying potentially the greatest
Could
city
care
in the world.
less. They have proved to me that they would, if they cannot get their way. The summer of 2020 says everything I need to see. Everything. They rather will rule over rubble than lose. Rubble. They're willing to burn the whole country down, and they burn cities down. And frankly, a lot of those jobs, a lot of those businesses, they're not coming back. Why would you invest in Minneapolis, St. Paul? Why would you invest in certain sections of Chicago or San Francisco?
Right.
To get robbed? Are you crazy?
And you're
I'm
still
not investing.
and even if the cities came out and said, no, we're going to backtrack. We're going to have law and order. We're going to do all these things. And none of this stuff. You can't go in and shoplift, and you're not going to get prosecuted for less. Even if they undid all that, you're not going to get insurance for your business because the insurance companies are going to say,
That's my point. And that's all they're doing, Joe. That's all they're doing. And this is what I'm saying. They have to be banished to the wilderness, that segment of that party. And there are parts, listen, we could agree to disagree on some things, and we could be civil. But on those particular issues, that particular group within the Democratic Party, Joe, the Democratic Party has to police them and get them out. Because I'm telling you right now, parties have come and gone. Look it up on Google, all the political parties that have been in this country that no longer exist. If you don't change, you will disappear. I'm telling you this right now.
I'm hoping to God that they do. But listen, there are some people in this country who think, they honestly think, they're not, I know they're delusional, but they honestly think that AOC could get.
Well, we're going to play.
Kevin, Meghan McCain says discount her at your peril, but she is a populist. She is this is about class politics, working class people, some of the same people Donald Trump appeals to. Does that worry you? As a
AOC, I have a tremendous amount of respect for. I buy her T-shirts for $39.95, tax the rich. They're very popular in Miami Beach. I wear them, and I sign them, and I give them to people. She has an 82% margin on that, proving that inside of every socialist is a capitalist trying to get out. But however, I would say this about her. You know, the ambassador of America, the CEO, the president, they have to embody the American dream. That's their number one job. Our number one export is not technology or energy. It's the American dream. People come to America to achieve the American dream. She embodies the American nightmare. And so she could never, ever, because she doesn't believe that people should succeed in wealth.
And you want to know what? That's exactly spot on. And all those women on that panel, and what's his name? Scott Jennings was there too. Scott Jennings was probably listening to Kevin O'Leary saying in his mind, this guy's spot on. The rest of them are incredulous because what do you mean? How so? AOC's a disaster. She may be a populist, but here's the difference. And this is what I want to throw to you, Joe Resinello.
I don't think she is a populist.
Let's say she had old school Democrat ideas. Okay. Tariffs. Let's have higher taxes on the rich. Trump wants that. Trump wants to tax everybody who makes money over $200,000, but he wants to abolish taxes for everybody who makes less than that. Last time I checked, that means tax the rich. Okay, AOC, of course, wouldn't go for that because she's a puppet of the oligarchs. But here's my point: why do all these people? And this is where Kevin O'Leary is partly right, but not completely right. Okay, Donald Trump is not going for the castration of minors. Donald Trump is not supporting DEI. He's doing that with Pete Hegseth, with the Department of Defense. He's eradicating it from the government. These are important to those blue-collar populist people. That's why AOC can never get elected, because even though she might, and she's just never going to say it publicly, even though in her heart she might agree with some of the stuff Trump does, she is a tool of the oligarchs, and part of that agenda is all the evil that we've been seeing, that Joe Biden and Barack Obama rammed down our throats, that the Department of Education rammed down our throats, that Hollywood rams down our throats. You're going to tell me, a blue-collar guy who traditionally voted Democrat, if he had a choice between populist Donald Trump and populist AOC, he's going to vote for populist AOC? He ain't, nor is his wife, What do you think?
100%. Couple things. One, I want AOC to run because she will get destroyed.
It could be worse than McGovern.
I
It
want
could be
her.
all 50
I am
states.
supporting her because she will get destroyed. That's first and foremost that I want to say. First thing. The next thing I want to say is this. Ultimately, what that man was saying is 100% spot on. She doesn't believe in what the country stands for. When Barack Obama ran, when he had that marketing, like basically slogan, change, he meant it. They want to fundamentally change this country. That is what that segment of that particular group within that coalition within the Democratic Party, they say it. They just don't say it as clear as I'm saying it. They want to fundamentally change America. They do not believe in its founding. And that is never going to work if they say it clearly. They tried to sneak that under the guise of Scranton Joe because he was frigging nothing more than a puppet, and friggin' Joe Biden, that they'd say Donald Trump's an embarrassment. Beyond. The man walked into the jungle in Brazil. The man walked in. I'll never forget that as long as I live, Joe. When he had that press conference. That was nothing short of absurd. And there were many moments of absurd under Joe Biden. Nothing more than a puppet. They don't believe in this country. And listen, if you don't believe in it, then sell it as it is. They won't do that. They can't do that because they know they can't win.
That's why I say just go watch any congressional hearing, House or Senate, with a Trump nominee or a Trump witness or anything who the Democrats are focused on. Go watch how they question these people, and that's all you need to see. They don't ask anything substantive. Everything is a gotcha. Everything is just at my time. I told you earlier, my time's my time. My time. It's my time. No, you can't answer. Yeah, but you just asked me a question. Yeah, but you're filibustering. I didn't say two words. I did not filibuster. I'm trying to answer. No, it's my time. Mr. Chairman, I want more. It's a joke. You want to know why? For the reason you just said. They don't have anything substantive to say. And as far as America, let's just face it, this is not something that's just unique to America. Europe is gone. Okay, we know that Europe is gone. They're trying to do the same thing in America. Okay, they're trying to wreck Western civilization. These are basically people who hate humanity. Okay, now we don't agree with let's say we're not Protestant. Okay, and we're not like, let's say, skeptical of the belief in God. Okay, we're Roman Catholic men. All right, we understand the value of Western civilization, of what authentic human flourishing is all about. Okay, that's how Western civilization was built. And when it promulgates, when it spreads, as long as it's founded on proper principles, okay, then you will have human flourishing. The United States proved that. And by the way, at the greatest point in the United States economic power after World War II, it's no mistake, okay, that Catholics were very strong in America, very well represented in the labor movement, okay, which helped to nurture the middle class and forward the desires of the middle class in America. But having said all that, Western civilization is what allows for this. Oligarchs and those who would seek to rule, okay, like you said, they'll rule over rubble as long as they'll rule. So will the devil, by the way. He is a king. He's the king in hell, okay? They don't care as long as they have power. That's what this is all about. That's why, Joe, I'm going to throw it to you. That's why John Fetterman couldn't get the Democrat nomination right now. John Fetterman could not get the Democratic nomination right now if he ran, because he opened his mouth a little bit too much. You think I'm wrong?
Ultimately, like I said, John Fetterman's looking out for John Fetterman, and the Democratic Party is not looking out for the American people. They have to lose the AOCs, the Ilhan Omars. They have to lose them. And ultimately, as this progresses, I don't think they're going to win the midterms. I really don't. I don't see that happening. And I actually think the next round, the president, I don't think that AOC could beat J.D. Vance or beat Marco Rubio or beat, what's his face from Florida, the governor of Florida. I can't,
Oh, DeSantis.
These are the people she would be running against. She would get destroyed.
Sure, and the media, the alternative media, the X, the Rumbles, particularly X, is only going to get more powerful as the power of the mainstream and legacy media is diminished. So they're not going to be able to get their way. They're not going to be able to bully.
No, but that's my point.
Let's say a Ron DeSantis. Let's use him as an example. Is ABC going to be able to go to him and say, "Well, here's the rules of the debate," because this
They
is
shouldn't
Democrat.
even. I'll be honest with you. Donald Trump should never.
But here, real quick. But DeSantis is going to turn around and say, "All right, then we're not going to debate. Oh, we're going to go out there. We're going to say you're afraid to debate." And you say, "Go ahead.
Good.
Nobody's listening to you anyway."
That's exactly. Donald Trump made that mistake. He should not have ever debated Harris on ABC. Ignore them. No one watches them anyway. Go on Joe Rogan. Notice Harris didn't go on Joe Rogan. Humongous mistake.
Right.
Go on Tucker Carlson. Go on those. Go on.
No, she wouldn't go to the Alfred Smith dinner.
Well, she lost.
And she made a video. She sent a video mocking Catholics to the Al Smith dinner, and she didn't bother to show up. Even Jim Gaffigan went off on her several times throughout the whole thing, and he was the MC. And he was making sure everybody in that audience knew that that woman was not there. Want to know why? Like you said, she can't. Well, she's just an example. We were talking about AOC. She's the same thing. Ilhan Omar. They don't know how to think on their feet.
Well, it's not just that, Joe. They're just a poison. They're a cancer within their own party. Their party has to police them. I got news for you. They're going to sink you. If you're a Democrat and you hear my voice, I'm just telling you, from a practical perspective, the Democrats have to get back to the Bill Clinton middle. That is where you're dialed in. You have to get the middle class back.
Well,
you've lost them. You lost them. I'm not the only person saying it. I'm telling you this. You lost them. You have to get them back, and you're not going to get them back. AOC is a radical. You're going to get the lower 15% of the population, the working class. You're going to get the uber rich because it doesn't matter. Everyone in the middle, even those who lean left, who work for a living, no one's fooled anymore.
Right.
You're not getting that vote. I hope she runs.
I hope. Listen, I'll tell you right now, because I want to play this clip. Two things. Number one, Bill Clinton couldn't get the Democrat nomination.
No way. No
nowadays,
way.
Running on the same platform he did in the
100%.
90s. And another thing, too, we talk about economics. We talk about how radical they are. If they don't start respecting the First Amendment, okay, that I'm telling you, you talk about deal breakers with a lot of people. You might not like the Catholic Church. You might be as appalled as Joe and I and many other Catholics out there about the sex abuse, okay, that was going on by the homosexual priests who were going after these teenage boys. You might be appalled by that, and we are too, okay? And we hope the churches, they have been doing much about that. But at the very least, you better understand, you don't protect the fundamental freedom of expression of the Catholic Church in America under our First Amendment, then sooner or later they come after you.
Senate Bill 5375 requires members of the clergy to report child abuse and neglect, even if the information is divulged in confession or sacred confidence. Washington is one of just 5 states that does not designate clergy as mandatory reporters. Under current law, a variety of other professions that frequently interact with children, including police officers, nurses, and school personnel, are required to report incidents of suspected abuse. This bill protects Washingtonians from abuse and harm. And I'll just say on a personal note, I'm a Catholic, and as some of you know, and my uncle was a Jesuit priest for many years here in the Northwest. And so, from my perspective, I obviously have a personal perspective on this, but protecting our kids, first, right? Protecting our kids first is the most important thing. And so, for me, is I'm aware of my upbringing as Catholic and having an uncle who's a Jesuit. For me, this is very clear. very clear legislation and important legislation. So appreciate all the hard work. 'Cause I know it's been a few years.
I had to cut it off because I feel like I'm going to go throw up. And I'm being serious. Number one, for all our non-Catholic listeners out there at the front line with Joe and Joe, he is not Catholic. And I'm going to tell you why he's not Catholic. And I don't care how judgmental that sounds. He said because the protection of children comes first. For law enforcement, the protection of children comes first. For the church authorities, okay, the protection of children is paramount within the church. That's why the church has been acting to get rid of the homosexuals who actually perpetrated these crimes going back to the 1950s. And get it straight, that's who it was. That was a sociological study that was done by John Jay. 80% of the cases, these were homosexual men going after teenage men. Teenage young men, but teenage men nonetheless. Okay, so let's get that clear. It wasn't a pedophile scandal. But if you can't find out what happened and try somebody in a court of law without breaking the seal of the confessional, okay, there's two things. Number one, that disgraziad right there, okay, he's not Catholic. I don't care how many uncles he has as Jesuit priest. That's number one, okay? And number two, you don't respect the First Amendment. You don't respect that the First Amendment, this wall of separation between church and state, that wall is not there as Thomas Jefferson wrote that letter. That wall was not intended by Jefferson to mean it protects the state from the church. It's supposed to protect the church from the power of the state. So let's get it straight. Those of you who disagree, go take a history lesson, okay? So here is a direct infringement on the free expression of the religion of the Catholic Church in Washington State. It's disgusting, number one. And number two, you support this kind of stuff, one day it's going to come back and bite your First Amendment rights right in your ass.
3 points. First point, that's never going to stick. The Supreme Court will vote that down. That's number one. Number two, he says he wants to protect children. The state of Washington will castrate a young boy, will kill a child in the womb up until the third trimester, and they're running on this platform of protecting children. That is ridiculous. And lastly, this is a strategy which they have used under Barack Obama, and this is what we should do. They know that the Supreme, at least I like to think, I'm going to give them an ounce of credit, that there is no way that that's going to fly, yet they do it anyway. This is what we have to do. For instance, when judges legislate from the bench, you remove them. And basically, what you say, take me to court. And that's what they're saying. And that is the strategy we should do. Exactly what they, and that's why Barack Obama had one of the worst records ever in the Supreme Court in the history of America. Look that up. That is exactly, you challenge, even if you have to radically challenge, let them call you names. If a judge does something, legislating from the bench, taking the power away from the people, like the state of Pennsylvania did in the 2020 presidential election, and John Roberts did not take the case, look that up. You challenge them radically. Take me to court. You get a lawyer, I'll get a lawyer. Let's see who wins. 9 times out of 10, I'll bet you this, we win.
Right.
That will not win. That is what we do. Learn from their strategy. Mimic it. We should do the same thing.
That's right. And there's one thing that, and we're going to leave it there. I want to stick around. I wanted to show you a clip by Braden Sorbo. I thought was very good. It's only a 2-minute clip. But that's one of the things that we need to do. And that's one of the reasons why, Trump's a very frustrating guy. But that's why that's why, and that clip with Carney is a perfect example. Get in the gutter with them. It's like, Trump's one of those, originally when it comes to the oligarchs, they bring a knife to just a regular street fight and they wind up winning. Trump brings a gun to a knife fight. Okay. In other words, or they bring a knife to a gunfight when they go against Trump. You know how the old saying goes, and he wins. He wins because he knows how to drag them into the gutter. He's not afraid to get dirty in there. All right. With all that dirty water that usually piles up around the gutter, he's willing to get in there with them and fight and win. And it's exactly right. So that's his tactic. And you're right. When they pull these bogus ideas, this is going to go to the Supreme Court. Thomas More Society or one of them,
Oh,
ACLJ, they're going to file suit against this. And I have no doubt. I have my doubts about John Roberts and lately Amy Coney Barrett. I have no
Joe,
doubt in
that's
this
not
particular
fine.
case. It's going to be 6-3.
I actually think it might be 9-0. I don't even know.
No, Ketanji Brown Jackson is the radical that she was put up to be. She will vote against anything that goes against Donald Trump. I don't know if there have been any. I'd be surprised if there's any 9-0 Supreme Court decisions moving forward, as long as she is a Supreme Court justice. She's a joke. I don't care what anybody says. I could say that because then the names they called Clarence Thomas, racist names, by the way, that they called Clarence Thomas. I'm not saying anything about her blackness. I'm just saying she's a nitwit. All right. And she is a hack. She's the AOC of the Supreme Court. That's what she is. She's the AOC, the Bernie Sanders of the Supreme Court. She's there. She's there to read a script. She had a willing Democrat majority that was willing to put her in there. Those guys, they're going to have to answer to God for their sins for putting a woman like that on the Supreme Court. But anyway, I agree with you. I hope I'm right. That legislation is going to go down in flames. Joe Rossinello, lively conversation as always. Here at Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time at the front line with Joe and Joe. Please, wherever you're watching this video, if you like our conversation, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Thank you to all of our friends who show up every week, and let's get some more. So help us out. We'll see you next Thursday, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Stick around for one final clip. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
At this point, at this day and age, that college is a scam. So why would I'm 23, I never went to college. Why would I want to go and sit there and be lectured by a guy who is anti-Christian, anti-masculinity, and anti-white people for 4 years and then give him my money and go into debt? I think a lot of guys are very smart in avoiding this, and many guys are actually choosing to opt in for trade schools. I have a friend of mine who's doing his apprenticeship as an HVAC technician right now, doing AC, and he's making more money than the girl who just graduated college with her bachelor's in business, marketing or something like that, which even that would be considered a more useful degree. My dad just filmed a movie where his co-star, this young woman, had just graduated college or was just entering her junior or senior year of college. And he asked her what she was studying. And she goes, gender studies. And he goes, here you go. Male and female. Congratulations, you've passed. And now you're $80,000 into debt. So you have these people with these useless degrees. There's no reason, or there's no, wonder why these guys are opting out of it, because it's a waste of time. 99% of the time, it's pointless. Unless you want to become a lawyer or a doctor, I really don't see a benefit in college. And even then, some states will allow you to take the bar without actually going to law school for it. My aunt knew someone, because she's a lawyer, knew someone who did just that. And he's one of the best lawyers in the state of Florida. And so we have this kind of idea still ingrained in our minds that school is necessary, when in reality, it's really not. We go into debt and spend decades of our time trying to pay it back. I mean, the median college graduate salary in 1959 was $10,000. If you make up for inflation, that is over, I think, $80,000 today. Whereas today, the median average graduation is $60,000. That doesn't keep up for inflation, especially when you account for how much money is worthless now, right? It doesn't cost the same to rent an apartment now as it did 40, 50 years ago. It doesn't cost the same to buy groceries or a car or a house 40, 50, 60 years ago, right? So we're not keeping up with inflation with college. And a lot of guys are looking at that statistic and going, okay, well then maybe I should find something else to do that isn't going to put me in massive amounts of crippling debt.